There is a moment in luxury when a price stops feeling aspirational and starts feeling insulting. For years, Chanel could raise the price of a classic flap and people still came running. The dream was too strong, the logo was too powerful, the history was too deep. But now something has changed. The same woman who once thought, "One day I'll own a Chanel," is now looking at the price and asking a very different question. Not, "Can I afford it?" but, "Do I still believe it is worth it?" That is the question Chanel is facing now. And that is the question Matthieu Blazy has inherited. Because Chanel does not just need a beautiful collection. It does not just need a new campaign. It does not just need another runway moment. Chanel needs people to believe again, and belief is much harder to rebuild than hype. The classic Chanel flap has more than doubled since the pandemic. A bag that once sat in the realm of expensive but possible now sits in a category that feels unreachable for many aspirational buyers. And for a while, that strategy worked. The price rises created urgency. People bought before the next increase. Collectors justified it as an investment. Resellers treated Chanel like currency. The boutiques stayed full. The wait lists stayed long. The brand looked untouchable. But luxury has a dangerous habit. When it keeps raising prices, it starts to test the emotional contract between the brand and the buyer. And Chanel pushed that contract very far. Because when you charge $4,000 for a bag, people expect quality. When you charge close to $10,000, people expect perfection, no loose stitching, no questionable leather, no hardware that feels less substantial than it used to, no feeling that the older pieces had more soul than the new ones, and that is where the conversation around Chanel started to shift. It was not just, "Chanel is expensive." Everyone already knew Chanel was expensive. The real question became, has Chanel become too expensive for what it is? That is a much more dangerous question, because once buyers start asking that, the fantasy has a crack in it, and Chanel is built on fantasy. The fantasy of Paris, the fantasy of timelessness, the fantasy of Coco Chanel, the fantasy of Karl Lagerfeld, the fantasy of walking into a boutique and buying something that feels bigger than fashion. A Chanel bag was never just a bag, it was proof. Proof that you had arrived, proof that you had taste, proof that you understood something classic, proof that you had bought into a piece of fashion history. But history alone cannot carry a $10,000 price tag forever. At some point, the product has to make the price feel earned. That is where Matthieu Blazy becomes so interesting. Because Blazy is not just another designer with a famous name. At his previous fashion house, he understood something that many luxury brands seem to have forgotten. He understood that modern luxury buyers are not stupid. They research, they compare, they watch reviews, they read forums, they notice stitching, they notice leather, they notice when a brand is selling craft and when it is just selling packaging. In his previous work, Blazy made quiet luxury feel emotional. At Chanel, he has to do something even harder. He has to make expensive luxury feel believable again. And early signs suggest he has already created movement. His Chanel work has generated real attention. New shoppers are watching. Existing Chanel buyers are paying attention again. The fashion world is waiting to see whether this new era can actually justify the price. That matters, because Chanel did not only need a new designer, it needed a new reason to care. For years after Karl Lagerfeld, Chanel still sold. Of course it sold, this is Chanel. But selling and exciting people are not the same thing. Virginie Viard kept the house steady. She respected the codes. She maintained the world. But the cultural electricity became quieter. The collections were there. The tweed was there. The camellias were there. The pearls were there. But the conversation was not loud enough to match the prices. And that is the problem Blazy has walked into. He has inherited one of the most powerful fashion houses in the world. But he has also inherited one of the most complicated pricing problems in luxury. Because Chanel has moved itself into a territory where the buyer is no longer just comparing Chanel to Chanel. They are comparing Chanel to the very top tier of luxury. They are comparing Chanel to vintage. They are comparing Chanel to high jewelry. They are comparing Chanel to the mortgage payment, the investment account, the family holiday, the business idea, or the money they could simply keep. That is the part luxury brands do not like to say out loud. The buyer has changed. People are still emotional. They still want beautiful things. They still want status. They still want fantasy. But they are also more financially awake than they were before. They know resale is not guaranteed. They know investment. Bag is often just a comforting phrase for emotional spending. They know price increases do not automatically mean value, and that is why Blazy's job is so hard. He cannot simply make Chanel pretty. Chanel is already pretty. He cannot simply make Chanel classic. Chanel is already classic. He has to make Chanel feel alive again. He has to make the codes feel desirable, not dusty. He has to make the history feel relevant, not recycled. He has to make the customer feel like the price is painful, but not ridiculous. That is the line. Luxury is allowed to be expensive. That is not the issue. The issue is when expensive stops feeling magical and starts feeling cynical, and Chanel has come dangerously close to that line. So can design fix a pricing problem? Yes, but not instantly. A brilliant designer can rebuild desire. A strong collection can change the conversation. A fresh creative direction can make people look again. We have seen it before when the right designer completely changes the emotional temperature of a brand. One designer can make people care again. One designer can make a familiar house feel new. One designer can turn doubt back into desire. But design cannot erase buyer memory. People remember the price increases. They remember the quality complaints. They remember the feeling that Chanel kept asking for more while not always giving more back. That is the real challenge. Blazy is not starting from zero. He is starting from doubt, and doubt is expensive because when a buyer spends $10,000, she does not want to feel unsure. She wants conviction. She wants to feel that even if the price is outrageous, the object makes sense. That is the psychology Chanel has to rebuild, not just beauty conviction. And that is why the next 12 to 18 months matter, not because one show will decide everything. It will not, but because consistency will. One good collection gets attention. 2 good collections create hope. 3 or 4 good collections start to rebuild belief. That is what Chanel needs now. A sustained period where the fashion feels exciting, the products feel considered, the quality conversation calms down, and the price starts to feel supported by the world around it. Because right now, Chanel's biggest problem is not that it is expensive. Chanel has always been expensive. The problem is that too many people are asking whether the price has outrun the story, and when a luxury brand loses the story, the price starts looking naked. So what does this mean if you are thinking about buying Chanel now? Here is the honest answer. If you love a piece deeply and you can afford it without stress, buy it because you love it. Not because someone online told you it is an investment. Not because Chanel is forever. Not because you are scared the price will rise again. Buy it because you genuinely want to own it and use it. But if you are buying mainly because you think it will hold value, I would be careful. The Blazy era is still forming. The resale market is still adjusting. The wider luxury customer is more cautious than before, and Chanel's prices are already sitting at a level where the margin for disappointment is tiny. If you are unsure, waiting is not weakness. Waiting is information. Let the market speak. Let the collection settle. Let the quality conversation evolve. Let the new Chanel prove itself, because this is not just about one bag. It is about something bigger. It is about what happens when a luxury house keeps raising prices until the customer finally says, "Show me why." That is the sentence Chanel has to answer now, not with marketing, not with nostalgia, not with another price increase, with product, with craft, with desire, with a reason to believe. Matthieu Blazy may be one of the few designers capable of doing that. But even he cannot save Chanel with beauty alone. He has to restore the feeling that Chanel is not just expensive, but worth it. And that is a much harder job, because the real question is not whether Matthieu Blazy can make Chanel beautiful again. The real question is whether he can make people believe in the price again. And if Chanel cannot make $10,000 feel justified, then the problem is no longer the bag. The problem is belief. Luxury answers without the influencer nonsense.